What's up, guys? I'm Ethan from Puck Drop Hockey.
And I'm Jack.
And today we are debuting our new series, Hockey Weekly. This will be a weekly series where we just talk about anything going on in the NHL. Today we're going to talk about a couple topics that we like. The Blue Jackets, which will be like just this weekly thing where we talk about everything going on in the Blue Jackets. We'll talk about the awards, and we will talk about our opinion on the 31 teams currently sitting after the expansion draft and obviously the new draft. So we'll start off with the Blue Jackets. What's your opinion on their rosters right now?
Right now, we're kind of missing that big name player or whatever. Like, John Tavares would be a big help if we had him.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to fill them in on this. So we've been kind of looking at trades to John Tavares, who plays for the Islanders. Really good player. If you don't know him, then you should go watch some montages of him. He's really good. His contract is almost up, and if they don't re-sign him soon, then he'll be up for any teams in the NHL. And we feel like that the Jackets could sign them, and that would just be everything we need. Just a high-scoring center that can win face-offs, really good passer, really good shooter. So if we got that, we were thinking that'd be amazing. And our top line would be Brandon Saad, the guy we got from the Hawks a couple years ago, last year actually. Wait, no, 2 years ago. And then Tavares, and then Cam Atkinson. That'd just be such a good line.
The problem is, we just traded away Saad.
We just traded Saad and Anton Forsberg, a goalie in our minors, for, I think it was Tyler Mott and Artemi Panarin. Was that it?
And a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, and a pick. So, interesting trade. My thoughts personally, I think we could have gotten more for Saad.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they wanted him back. It's because since they won the Cup, no winger has been able to keep up with Taves. And that line, if you put Saad back with Taves, that's just going to be a really good line again. So I'm sure Saad's looking forward to being back at Chicago. I'm sure a bunch of their guys are looking forward to having him back. So that'll be very interesting. What are your thoughts on the trade?
I think the Jackets got the lower hand on that trade because I get, Saad's not a big name player and he's not the highest trade value and all, but how much the Hawks needed him, the Jackets could have used that to their advantage during that trade and told them, give us more since you want him that bad.
Yeah.
It's just, I get it. It was a decent trade. I just think, like you said a couple days ago, we have two guys that have potential to be elite, and we just gave one away for someone who's less likely to be an elite player.
Yeah, what the Jackets really need is an elite scorer on offense. So we have, obviously our defense is pretty set. We needed an elite scoring offense, and basically the only guys that showed potential to be elite were Brandon Saad and Alex Wenberg, and now we've just traded one of them away for Panarin. And Panarin's obviously, he's a good scoring winger.
He's higher scoring than Saad.
Yeah, he put up more points this last year than Saad did, but he's not a centerman. We just traded a left wing for a left wing, and that's not what we really needed. I mean,
especially since we just lost Carlson to the expansion draft.
Yeah, we lost Carlson in the expansion draft.
Which we do have Sedlak now, but that's not really an improvement in my opinion.
Yeah, and the only other center that we would possibly have, other than if you look in the minors, is Sam Gagner, but I don't think they'll re-sign him. But we'll see how that goes. So, but yeah, I think we really could have gotten more for Saad. We just got a left wing that's good scoring. He'll help, but I mean, again, that's like what we got the last draft. If we would have gotten the Puljujarvi last year, that's just a winger. Which I mean, looking back, that was the right decision. He didn't end up to be very special, but I mean, it's just not what we need. We have a lot of wings already. I would have rather kept Saad than Panarin. He's a better overall winger. But yeah, we'll see how Panarin turns out. We'll see how that line works. They'll probably put Wenberg and Panarin and Foligno on a line. I don't know. Maybe they'll switch it up. I can see Bjorkstrand coming up to a second line or a first line because I feel like he could be really elite. I mean, he's a sniper, right-handed shooter, and we don't have any right-handed snipers.
And the nice thing about him is he's a good backup choice if we do end up with Tavares to replace Saad on that line.
Yeah, you can have Cam Atkinson, and then you have Bjorkstrand, and then you have Tavares, and that's a pretty good line. But the thing is, I just feel like Saad would have been a perfect line mate for Tavares, and Cam Atkinson would have just completed that speed. But, we'll see how that goes. So what are your thoughts on the 31 teams, currently sitting with the awards and the expansion draft, and then obviously the rookie draft?
So goalie wise, I believe starter. I mean, it's a toss up between Bob and Holtby because you look at it career wise. I think Holtby's had a better career, but the past couple years, Bob has been the better goalie. So goalie wise, it's kind of funny because they're both Metropolitan, and I also believe. I'm not sure how Price ended up in the Vezina running because Dubnyk had a better year.
Dubnyk had a better beginning of the year. I mean, Price obviously had a good year, but that's just because it's Price.
He was like 6th in one stat, 9th, didn't make the top 10, didn't make the top 10. It was just didn't make sense why he was in the Vezina. I get he has a big name and all, but
yeah, I think that was the main reason because he had a big name.
Cam Talbot had a better year.
Yeah, Talbot.
Dubnyk
I think
had a better
Talbot
year.
or Dubnyk should have been in that place instead.
Yeah.
The thing is, the problem was Bob. The reason why Bob won the Vezina was because he was just consistent all year long. He played behind a pretty weak and young defense that hadn't had much experience.
Which now they have experience, so it'll be a bit stronger.
Our defense will be better than our offense looking ahead to this year. And then Holtby, what Holtby did was he had a good start to the year, and then he just went lit on fire at the end of the year. Dubnyk did the opposite. He was really good, and then he just dropped the ball at the end. Price, he had a Price year, but he didn't have as good as he usually does. So, I mean, I feel like Dubnyk or Cam Talbot should have been in that place. I mean, Price didn't even make it past the first round. Like, you can even say Lundqvist filled that spot. So, I don't know. The big goalies, Jonathan Quick, Hank, and Price kind of let down this year. And then the smaller name goalie, like obviously Holtby was still solid, but and Bob.
Bob isn't as big of a name as Holtby, but that's because he's played with the Jackets mainly his career.
Yeah, the Caps are a bigger franchise.
The Jackets this was the best season of their entire franchise. Yeah. And they've only made the playoffs once other was Bob, or twice?
I think it's been one other time with Bob, and then three times total.
Yeah.
No, and then Dubnyk and Cam Talbot are smaller goalies. Like when you think about it, they both play for smaller teams, being the Wild and the Oilers. So going into the how the expansion draft affected things, I think that was pretty huge. Who took the biggest loss? I feel like it was definitely the Panthers.
With Jonathan, he is such a great scorer for them, and
that's not something they have a lot of.
Yeah, the offensive presence he has with them is just now not having him. That's a huge score for Vegas.
That's a big gap.
I'm not quite sure why they didn't protect him.
Yeah, I don't know why. They protected Yager, didn't they?
I think, which makes sense because he's historic and all, but
I mean,
he's
gonna retire soon. He's gonna have to.
He has to.
The only reason he hasn't yet is just because he's still been solid.
Yeah,
he's
still a solid player. He's just not.
He hasn't been a top scorer in several years, and he hasn't played for a top team in a little while either. And the Panthers are really just kind of struggling for more all around. I mean,
their goalies, they need to rebuild.
They really do. They need to rebuild their franchise. Yeah. I mean,
Jonathan would have been a good start now because now he's going to go help the Vegas start. But
what was his name? Marchessault?
Jonathan Marchessault, I think.
I think that was his name.
I'm not quite sure. I'm not good with names and all.
Yeah, we'll call him Johnny Boy. No, yeah, I agree with you. I think that was a huge loss for them, and they still have some talent over there. It's just it's not something they have in abundance. They have Jaromir Jagr obviously helps, but you can't build a franchise around him anymore. I mean, he's a good start to have, but he's not something you can build around.
Same
he's not
thing with
exactly
Roberto,
a big leader.
too. Roberto's getting towards the end of his career.
Luongo's towards the end of his career, and he hasn't had a very strong year, and since 2015. He doesn't have that mentality anymore. He had the injury this year, I think. He lost his starting position a little while ago. So I really think
just start over.
His career's got to be over pretty soon.
Same thing with Vancouver. They need to start over too. Like
Vancouver does need to rebuild.
But they stopped.
Speaking of Luongo teams,
stopped.
Vancouver kind of stopped they stopped halfway through rebuilding their team. The Sedins are good. I think they have redeemed Verbata, which is obviously very good.
But the Sedins are both 35 years old, so they're towards the end. They're slowly just dropping back.
The two twins are not something that's going to be a franchise type thing.
If they went
you need to rebuild your team. You need to get young talent.
7 years ago, that would have been a good start for a team. Now, maybe not build the whole team around them, but that's a good start for a team.
Yeah, they need some new young talent, or that team's going downhill really fast, and that would be a bummer to see. They've been around for a little while. At one point, they were a really killer team.
I don't see Vancouver losing their team.
No, not anytime
unless it gets to the point where it's the fact that the fans quit coming because they're so bad.
Yeah, I mean they haven't been in the cup or in the playoffs in a couple years. But the thing is,
But that's with most Canadian teams.
The reason they're
Canadians
still
are like
alive,
the only consistent one. But now Toronto's coming back too.
Yeah,
and Ottawa.
the reason they're still alive is because a couple years ago they were just so dominant in the playoffs. You know, obviously defeating the Blackhawks at some point. Like that used to be a huge rivalry between Vancouver and Chicago. That was so fun to watch. I loved seeing that kind of stuff. And them in Boston in the final back in 2011 when Boston won the cup, that was just such a fun series to see. And I really wish that they were back in their dominant days because that would just be such a fun matchup to watch. But it's just not how it is anymore. They don't have as much scoring talent as they do anymore. Obviously, the Sedins bring a lot to the table, but they don't bring enough. You can't build a team around the Sedins. You can keep them for a little while and they help, but that's not gonna help your franchise a whole lot. And their goalie Ryan Miller.
No offense to them, it's just they're not that type of player.
Yeah, you can keep them.
Connor McDavid.
You can keep them, and you can keep Ryan Miller, and that's a good start to your team. And you can keep Verbata and all those guys. That's some scoring talent, but now you need some something to build around.
A defensive presence or something.
Yeah, big defensive presence. They need something like that.
You need something to start because they just have nothing right now.
Yeah, something's gonna happen soon. Then, they gotta break through, or they're just gonna fall under. But yeah, you're right. Canadian teams have really come into the presence this year with the draft last year. You know, obviously, in the past two drafts
Austin
have been
Matthews,
very strong. Yeah,
Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, I mean,
Connor McDavid.
I think what happens with the Leafs is going to be very similar to what happens with the Jackets' defense, particularly, is that when they mature, they're going to be really, really good because they have Nylander, Matthews. What was the other guy's name? They had one more really good rookie this year. I forget his name though. But they have a solid team, and they have everything you need. You know, obviously they face the top team in the league going into the playoffs.
I don't like the way they do the playoffs.
I don't like how that is.
Sense because you think about it, Jackets had the most historic season in their entire franchise of 16, 17 years.
You battle all year long, and then you face the Penguins in the first round.
And that huge streak they had, that's the third longest streak in history. The team of young players, the kind of almost like a Cinderella story, kind of like no one knew who these guys were. Like Zach Werenski, everyone was like, "Who is this guy?" And all of a sudden now he's one of the three choices for
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, and like he got beat by Austin Matthews.
Yeah,
and he was up with Laine.
Yeah, he and Laine and Matthews, like,
he's
when you think about it, that's
rookie.
the first overall pick, that's the second overall pick, and didn't Matthews go, and not Matthews, Werenski went pretty late, didn't he?
We were a later pick. We weren't way down there, but we were still a later pick. He wasn't like...
Was he top 10? No, I
don't even think he was.
I know we took Dubois, and he was rated 8th overall, but he was taken 3rd overall, and that was a really good decision. You know, Dubois has been lighting up the minors, and Puljujarvi's really been struggling. That was the really good winger I told you about. Well, he was good, and then he went into the league. I think he went to Edmonton, and he was just really bad. Like he didn't have any offensive presence there. I don't think he scored a whole lot, but you got to admit Laine's been killer this season. Matthews been insane. I have to admit,
look on Laine's face when they said Austin Matthews, just the.
Someone should have put like a meme, like triggered.
Hashtag triggered.
No, but as I was saying, the Leafs, once they mature, I think they're a really good playoff team. They're finally back in. I hate seeing all these memes saying, like, that awkward moment when the Leafs finally beat a team. Like, I hate that.
They almost beat the Caps in the first round.
They almost beat the Caps in the first round. Yeah, they did.
Game 7, wasn't it?
Everyone was like, oh, Caps will beat them in 4 games. And then they took it to, like, 7 games, I think. 6 games?
6 or 7 games.
And they
were winning in the beginning.
They gave them some serious stuff. Like, that was
fun. They were beating the crap out of them. And all of a sudden, the Caps, woke up and were like,
They woke up and remembered who they were. Then they forgot in the second round. But
just got their crap beat out of them by the Penguins. Which, nice thing about that is, Penguins lose Fleury. Because Murray, in my opinion, is not a 70-game player. Like, he's not like Braden Holtby, like, going to be consistent all season long. He's not like Sergei, who can go all season long and be that consistent.
They will need to find a consistent backup.
Because he's good, but I don't see him being consistent that long.
If Fleury's contract was different, and you told me I can pick I can pick Murray or Fleury, and I only need to play 1 season, I would totally go with Fleury, because you know when you look at it,
He's
he's
a more
got three.
playoff-tested guy.
He's got three
the
cups.
better guy and better goalie in my opinion. He's just
Murray
Yeah.
was excellent last playoffs. He was good this playoffs as well. But Fleury, you look at his start. Murray went down in the warm-up of
Yeah.
game 1,
And
then
he
Fleury
just came in
took
and-
over. Fleury's mentality
Yeah.
was outstanding. You
it was
have to
amazing
applaud the
because you
Penguins.
think about it. Like last time, Fleury was getting the crap rattled out of him
I mean, yeah,
by
he was.
the Jackets,
He was
and all of a
really.
sudden now it's like completely solid. Like it didn't phase him.
Oh yeah, his mentality was a lot better. I don't know what it was, but he really took that team far, and he took them through the first 2 or 3 rounds before he finally lost
Murray came back.
a big game, and then Murray came back. So if you told me that I could pick one of those goalies,
I would definitely pick Murray. Or
I would
Fleury.
go Fleury. Murray's, but the reason they protected Murray and they
He's
didn't protect
younger
Fleury,
and he has a little bit more potential.
younger,
with
more potential, and
the-
he's also his contract.
Yeah, because he gets more time to progress on everything. He's not too old, but he's still getting up there in years.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to retire soon. I wouldn't say too soon, but still, he's not got too long.
He's gonna retire sooner than Murray. So going into
Murray's
our final,
23, I think, 22, 23. Fleury's around 30.
Mhm.
So there's a big age difference there, but
Yeah.
he's just the better goalie.
Well, now when you look at it, Murray's got to have some confidence. He's
Mhm.
got 2 cups in his 2 rookie years. So,
Another thing, though, they're also going to lose a little bit of their offense and defensive presence because contract re-signings and everything.
yeah, they're going to have
Players
some
asking
cap
for
trouble.
more and more money.
Yeah,
Because
Gensel's going to
2
have to
cups,
ask for more.
2 cups. It's going to be all these young players that contracts are up asking for more money now. They're a cup. They played in the cup.
Gensel
and they
will
did
ask
decent.
for more money. He has to. I mean, he was the best. He was one of the best players of the playoffs. He was
And
just constantly
knowing
scoring.
Crosby's going to want more.
Yeah, Crosby. Well, Crosby will stick with him, but they
But
won't.
he'll
They
ask for
won't.
more.
They won't lose. They won't lose Crosby, and I don't think they'll lose Kessel.
I doubt it.
I can see them. I can see Malkin wanting to leave, but
Because he's been playing under Crosby all his career.
yeah, but he likes Crosby.
He does like Crosby, but in my opinion, he could be he is one of the top centers in the league. It's just the fact that he's playing in the shadow of Sidney Crosby.
At almost every other team, he could be a top line center. He
Yeah.
would be a top line center. But transitioning into our final topic, the awards. So, what are your opinions on some of the awards? I know Jackets won quite a couple
4.
awards.
4 awards.
Well, yeah,
The
4
only
awards.
one, the Penguins, the only thing they won was the one Sidney Crosby won, which
was
was
that
top
the
goal
scoring?
scorer.
Yeah.
Top goal scorer. Which, I agree, he did score the most goals, but Connor McDavid was the better scorer. Connor McDavid had 100 points this year.
That was pretty good.
And he was also the league leader in assists, and he was in, I believe, top 10 for goals.
I believe that's true. Yeah,
He-
he was. But
He
I
was
mean,
on fire this year. It
you-
was just ridiculous. No wonder he got the cover.
yeah, for the awards, you gotta look at Nick Foligno's 2 awards, the Mark Messier and the King Clancy.
Such big awards, and
What
he's
an
such
honor.
an amazing guy.
What an honor. I mean, that's really just for stuff on and off the ice. You're never going to see Foligno be the Leeds top goal scorer. I know he had a breakout year in
He's
2015.
never going to be that top player.
He's-
He's not going
yeah.
to be remembered for being like Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby, or even like Saad will be remembered more for his goal scoring than
Yeah,
Foligno.
Foligno
Foligno's
never
just
had.
such a great guy. though.
Foligno's never going to be a really, 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 really good goal scorer. I mean, he did have the great year in 2015, but ever since then he hasn't had that good of a season. But the thing is, he's just such a good leader and such a good
The Jackets,
guy.
I see him retiring as a Jacket unless he gets.
Oh yeah, I
tired
hope
of them.
I hope he does. But he's been so good. He donated all that money to charity and everything. I totally think he deserved both the
We
awards.
were at the game. He got the award on the ice, weren't we?
Not the no, that was a different
that
one.
that was
the
yeah.
team MVP. But yeah, that was just it
We
was.
saw him get that.
What
team
an
MVP.
honor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I'm honored to be a Jackets fan at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm like to the point where I'm like, hey, let's go buy a new jersey. Like I think my first Adidas jersey will be his jersey.
yeah, that was very good. Looking at Zach Werenski not winning the Rookie of the Year, I think it was
I'm
just
not
honored to
I'm not
have him up.
surprised.
I'm
I'm
just
not surprised because
I was really happy to just have him on
usually
the board.
I don't picture. He was definitely by far top.
He was our best
rookie
rookie.
defenseman.
He was our best rookie.
Top rookie defenseman of the league, definitely. The problem is he was up against
Matthews scored 4 goals on his first game. Laine was their top goal scorer for a while. He was the top goal scorer of the league for a long time. Werenski was not going to win that. I mean,
The funny thing is, they all three play for last year crappy teams.
Bottom 5 teams, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were all picks. They were all pretty good picks.
Mm-hmm.
But Werenski wasn't taken for.
Werenski wasn't top
Werenski
three
wasn't
picks.
he wasn't our first pick. He was like he was our second, I think. But that was a gem, and he's played really good. Really well. I'm really excited to see him and Jones mature.
That's going to be a great pair. I think that's
potentially
the next Keith and Seabrook.
Potentially that could be the next really amazing pair in hockey. So I'm glad that he was even up for Rookie of the Year.
He deserved it.
Yeah,
he
but
definitely deserved it.
I never thought he would win that.
No.
It was definitely Matthews. Just he had an outstanding year. So going into our final award for CBJ, Bob, definitely Vezina.
Yeah. When the only other guy who even comes close admits it should be the other
Holtby
guy.
admitted it the day before in a press conference. He said if Bob doesn't win it, like I don't know something. It was something
the only
like that.
stat Bob did not lead in
Wasn't it shutouts?
No, it was. He might not have been.
He wasn't leading in shutouts.
I think he was. He was in top 3 for shutouts.
He was in top 3, but
he was third place for wins. Cam Talbot and Braden Holtby were tied for first, and they beat him by 1 win.
And you look at those teams, the Oilers and the
both have better defenses.
Both have better defense, and both
have
better
a top guy like Connor McDavid. Okay, that's top scorer in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the Caps. Okay, there's Ovechkin, Oshie, Backstrom. Like, the list goes on and on and on. There's no.
It's the Caps. They won the President's Trophy for a reason. But the thing is, I mean,
back-to-back President's Trophies.
You have to look
right.
Yeah, you have to look at just how he played and his consistency. He was the only player that stayed.
The Tortorella Award too.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, he stayed amazing all year. He had a good start. He had an amazing start. He had a great finish to the year. He was an average goalie in the playoffs. I'll admit
in the playoffs, I don't know if it was like the nerves getting to him. Plus,
I don't know what it was.
He seemed rattled in the playoffs.
He did. He really did. He didn't seem like he had his confidence.
He didn't seem like Bob.
Yeah, and that was his problem last year. He didn't have enough confidence.
That was the entire team too. It seemed like the entire team, just being a young team, was nervous going up against a last year's Stanley Cup winner.
Well, it was also we didn't have a whole lot of luck. And, Pittsburgh Penguins, you can complain all you want, but if you, deep down, we didn't have any luck in that series. Werenski was our best player in the playoffs for a while, and then he broke his face.
Yeah.
And they still, and that play led to a goal.
Quincy and Nudavara.
They weren't played.
They were not played, yet they were our top 2, in my opinion, other than Werenski, top 2 defensemen in the playoffs.
They were our best pair. They ended up, the reason we got Quincy, you're not going to
get the playoffs.
You're not going to get a Quincy because he's a speedy guy or because he's a goal
defensive
scorer.
presence.
Like
he was there for the playoffs.
He's a solid defenseman.
He was there to help our younger guys in the playoffs.
Hasn't he won a cup? Has he won a cup?
I'm not sure.
I know he's been in the finals.
He's definitely been in the
But the thing is, you just got to look at that. The reason we got him is so he could play in the playoffs, and they didn't play him in the first 3 games of the playoffs. Yeah. Until they were like, oh, we're about to lose. Might as well put Quincy and Nudavara, and boom. That was our best pair of the playoffs. Werenski was our best player of the playoffs until he, just exploded.
Broke his face. And in my opinion, I don't think the guy did it on purpose, but I'm not quite sure because...
It was Kessel.
Yeah.
No, he didn't do it on purpose.
Werenski's not a short guy, and he wasn't really that close to the goal because Kessel was about the blue line. Werenski was maybe 10 feet away. I know he didn't do it on purpose. I just think... That was a terrible shot because that was a high shot.
The thing, yeah,
if he had shot that, if
Werenski wasn't off his stick,
if the Werenski was not in the way, that stick is hitting the net. It looked like.
Yeah, well, the
because
thing is,
Werenski's 6 foot something.
The garbage play about that is they allowed the goal that happened in that play.
Because there's a player laying on the ice with his face bleeding. But we're gonna go score a goal.
There was it happened later in the playoffs when it was the Penguins. I forget what game it was. But they took an injury just before the other team scored, and they didn't allow the goal.
Exactly.
The injury wasn't even as bad as the Werenski one.
Werenski had his face smashed by a puck.
He wasn't able to play the rest of the playoffs. Yet that guy, I think he had a 1-game injury, and maybe he even got right back up. I remember, though.
I remember, we were at the game when Oliver got his face smashed.
Yeah,
there was blood all over his visor.
Had blood all over his visor.
And they stopped the play.
Yeah.
Because they saw, okay, there's a guy laying on the ground. He's hurt. They stopped it again earlier in the game when Foligno went head first into the wall.
Even though that was against the Leafs.
Yeah. that was against the Leafs, but I mean, still, like, they stopped it.
they
There's an
stopped
injured
it.
player on
That's
the
a
ice.
good
They
thing.
stopped it because it's a dangerous sport, and if a guy gets hurt in that sport, it's more like, it's not like football, okay? So a guy gets hurt in the middle of the play, well, they're going down the field, and the guy's in the backfield hurt, okay? No one's going to hit him. He's back there, the ball's down there. He's not going to get hurt. Hockey, it can go right back around the rink and hit him again.
The rink's much smaller than a football field. But the thing is, Werenski's injury was so much better
like in baseball,
was so much worse than
someone gets hit, they
Bjorkshin
stop
or
it.
Foligno in that game. And they still didn't call the play. Like, they still didn't blow the whistle.
And it was like, that reminds me of like, okay, so they can blow the whistle like in the Nashville game when in the last game, Nashville scored the goal. He blew the whistle because he lost sight of the puck. But you don't blow the whistle because there's a guy laying on the ice with his face bleeding.
Also, let's talk about the Stanley Cup final game for the moment. The Pittsburgh Penguins won on a bad call, okay? And here, let me explain that for a minute, though. Don't get all mad at me. Okay, so here's what happened. I think it was before
Nashville lost all their momentum. due to that.
Nashville scored. It was a good goal, but the ref blew it too quick.
Goal.
The ref blew it too quick,
And
saying it was frozen or something.
These days. They just call these penalties too soon. Like,
They're too fast. They call icing every single time it's even close.
I see like two guys are like neck and neck, and maybe he blows the whistle because he sees his neck and neck, but then all of a sudden that offensive player goes and gets it.
Yeah, and it's before it's before it's
Another
even
thing I
down
hate
there.
is like, okay, so if they're going on opposite sides of the goal, because it's like right behind the goal, and the defenseman hits the blue line a little bit sooner, or the goal line, he stops it because he sees, okay, he hit the goal line, but then that offensive player gets that puck then. It's just, they're too quick to call these penalties, but yet then you go back to Zach Werenski, nope, not going to stop that, but we're going to stop play in these dumb situations.
But when you look at the cup game, like, okay, so they didn't allow that goal. Well, if they didn't allow that goal when Pittsburgh scored,
Pittsburgh was going to win that series, but it should have gone to Game 7 with Nashville having a little bit of momentum,
or they would have won in, or Pittsburgh would have won it in overtime. Because here's what: if they would have counted that goal, Pittsburgh would have still scored. Boom, it's 1-1, and Nashville wouldn't have had to pull their goalie to give Pittsburgh the lead. It would have been 1-1. It would have gone to overtime unless someone even scored. And you have to admit, Nashville did have their chances. They just didn't do it. But it would have been tied. It wouldn't have been 1-0. It would have been tied.
Plus, Nashville wasn't even a playoff tested team yet.
They were actually going into the playoffs. They were tied with Calgary at the bottom spot, going in with points, and they went to the final with the second leading team in the playoffs.
And they were also they
swept the Hawks in the first round. The Hawks are like what? I think they were the third place team going into it.
It was number one. It was Cavs, Pens, Jackets.
Oh, and then the Hawks.
Then it was Hawks because Hawks passed the Wild towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
Then Wild. Then I believe it was Rangers.
It's something like that. But anyways,
which was surprising because Hank really didn't have that good of a year for Hank.
Yeah, man, he had a pretty good playoffs.
But they still got that spot. See, in my opinion, the Jackets, I think if they would have held on at the end of the season, they honestly, I think, should have had that 2 spot. But another thing, Nashville, you look at that series, and Nashville's the higher seed. Nashville wins that series. It was a matter of who had Game 7 home.
Yeah, I mean, no one could
win on the road.
No one could beat Rene when he was in Nashville. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh did win a game in Nashville.
But it was because they lost all their momentum. They had to pull their goalie because they were down by 1 and they scored again. They wouldn't have done that if that goal counted.
Mm-hmm.
It was a blown call that cost Nashville a chance at the cup.
Yeah. All right, we're getting off track. Going back to the final thing we'll talk about is John Tortorella winning the Coach of the Year. I think it was a good idea. I forget who else was up, but I mean, he brought a bottom 3 team in the previous year to a Stanley.
Top 3 team.
To a Stanley.
A team that was at one point
not a cup final.
on the road to the President's Trophy, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's
They were number
team.
1 until about the All-Star game. They kind of like dropped a little bit. I think some of the guys, maybe it was some...
Gagne dropped, Wenberg dropped, Foligno dropped a little bit, Cam dropped a little bit.
Maybe it was confidence. I don't know. Maybe something going on in the locker room.
I think they just chilled out.
Yeah.
But
I think they thought they were just so high at the top. They just thought they couldn't drop, and they just did.
We had a 16-game winning streak. That's insane.
Third longest? Yeah. Second. But there's 2.
Only behind Pittsburgh.
And doesn't Pittsburgh have that streak twice? No, there's someone else who has that streak as well. I could have sworn there was.
That might be true.
I think there is 2 teams that both had 17.
I think the Hawks had 16 one year. No, but no one else had 17. But yeah, John Tortorella, I think he totally deserved the award. That was really cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of hate coming from all the other teams that have had him, the Rangers, the Canucks, everyone. But
Which is also dumb because they changed that rule that we had to give the Canucks that second-round pick.
yeah, we had to give them the pick, which is
Which
stupid
was stupid
then we
because
ended up not having
they
first
ended
round
up
pick or second
changing.
round
They
pick.
ended up changing the rule like right after we did it,
Yeah,
and we don't get our pick back. Plus, I don't see why we gave Vegas the first-round pick unless it was to protect one of our guys, which I believe might have been what it was. I'm just so glad we're gone with David Clarkson.
yeah. I mean,
He doesn't even play.
Oh my gosh.
He coaches at some school up north.
It was pretty bad to have him, but
He just for cap. Same thing with Pavel Datsuk. Like now the Coyotes have him, and I don't know how that's going to affect them now with their whole rebuilding thing, because that team's going to be huge. It's just the fact that now they have Datsuk's contract.
they just saved themselves from being renegated from the league, in my opinion. Anyways, that's the last thing we're gonna talk about. Look for this series. We will do it again next week sometime. Thank you for watching Puck Drop Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends, and we will see you guys later. Peace.